I want to start with something that happened to me personally. About 12 years ago, I'm not embarrassed to tell you this, I went through one of the most difficult periods of my life. Things that had been stable for years suddenly weren't. My health was off, my sleep was terrible. There was a tension in my home that I couldn't explain and couldn't resolve no matter what I did. I davened more, I learned more, I gave more tzedakah, and nothing shifted. One evening, a very old rabbi, a man I deeply respected, someone who had forgotten more Torah than most of us will ever learn, came to visit my home. He walked through quietly, didn't say much, and then he stopped in my living room and pointed at a plant in the corner. He said to me, and I remember his exact words, "David, that plant is dying, and you're keeping it alive out of stubbornness. Let it go." I thought he was talking about horticulture. He was not talking about horticulture. What he said next changed how I think about the spiritual environment of a home permanently. And today I want to share it with you. Because if you have a certain type of plant in your home right now, you may be living with a source of spiritual drain that you have completely normalized. And that ends today. Let me build the foundation first, because I always want to give you Torah, not just instructions, not just do this, don't do that, but real understanding, the kind that stays with you. In our tradition, the concept of chayim, life, is not just biological, it is spiritual. Hashem is called the Elohim Chayim, the living God. The Torah is called Etz Chayim, the tree of life. Our brachot, our prayers, our entire relationship with the divine is saturated with the language and energy of life. And in Kabbalistic understanding, living things, plants, trees, growing things, carry within them a specific kind of spiritual energy called nefesh hatzomachat, the soul of vegetation, a low level of divine life force that Hashem embedded into every growing thing at the moment of creation. This is why, in our tradition, there is such significance attached to the natural world, why Shavuot involves flowers and greenery, why the 4 species of Sukkot are living plants with such specific spiritual properties, why the Beit HaMikdash had so much botanical imagery, the menorah shaped like an almond tree, the pomegranates on the hem of the Kohen's garment. Living plants in a home bring living energy. They bring a whisper of the original garden, Gan Eden, into your domestic space. But here is the critical point that most people miss entirely. A plant that is dying, a plant that is dead, wilting, rotting, struggling, does not bring life energy into your home. It brings the opposite. Now the Zohar, and I want you to really sit with this, the Zohar teaches about what happens when something that was once alive begins to decay. There is a spiritual process that occurs. As the nefesh hatzomachat, the life force, withdraws from a dying organism, that withdrawal creates what the Zohar calls a halal, a void, an empty spiritual space left behind as the life force departs. And we've already talked in previous videos about what happens to vacant spiritual spaces. They do not stay vacant. The Sitra Achra, the forces that are the opposite of Kedusha, specifically seeks out these halal spaces, these voids left by departing life force. A dead or dying plant in your home is not just an aesthetic problem, it is a spiritual void generator. Sitting in your living room, on your windowsill, in your bedroom, quietly creating an expanding space of departed life force that draws in exactly the kind of energy you do not want in your home. I know that sounds intense. I know some of you are looking at your slightly yellowing potted plant right now with new eyes. Good. That's exactly what should be happening. But I want to go further, because dead and dying plants are one category. There is another category that fewer people talk about, and that is plants that our tradition specifically identifies as spiritually problematic, even when they are healthy and thriving. The plant I want to talk about specifically is the cactus. Now, before I continue, I know, some of you love your cacti. Some of you have had a cactus on your desk for 15 years. Some of you are already composing a comment telling me I've lost my mind. Stay with me, please. In Kabbalistic thought, every plant has a spiritual signature, a specific energetic quality that reflects its physical nature and its relationship to the divine life force flowing through it. The cactus is a plant that is defined biologically, structurally, essentially by defense, by repulsion, by the pushing away of anything that comes near it. Its entire existence is built around sharp points designed to wound, to repel, to say, "Do not come close. Stay away. I am not for you." Now, the Arizal taught that objects carry and project their essential nature into the spiritual atmosphere of the space they occupy. A plant whose entire biological identity is built around rejection, around wounding, around pushing away, what energy does it project into your home? Think about what you want your home to feel like. Warm, welcoming, a place where Shalom Bayit flows, where guests feel immediately at ease, where children feel safe, where spouses feel drawn toward each other rather than subtly irritated. And then think about a plant whose every fiber of its being radiates, "Stay back, don't touch me, keep your distance." These two things are not compatible. I've seen this pattern so many times in homes I've visited. People who have several cacti, very common now, very fashionable, very easy to maintain, which is why people love them, and a consistent undercurrent of coldness in the home. Not dramatic, not obvious, just this subtle emotional distance between family members that nobody can quite explain. The husband and wife who are technically fine, but somehow never quite warm. The family that doesn't fight, but also somehow doesn't connect. The home that looks beautiful from the outside, but feels just slightly hollow when you're inside it. And I'm not saying the cactus caused this. I want to be very careful here. I am saying the cactus is not helping. And in Kabbalistic understanding, it may be actively contributing, by continuously broadcasting its energetic signature of repulsion into the spiritual atmosphere of the home. There is a third category I want to address, and this one comes more directly from halachic and traditional sources rather than purely Kabbalistic ones. Plants with strong associations to avodah zarah, to idol worship traditions, have historically been avoided in Jewish homes. This includes certain plants that were used in pagan ritual contexts, plants associated with practices and beliefs that stand in direct opposition to Torah values. Now, I'm not going to list every such plant, because that goes into very specific botanical and historical territory that would require a separate video entirely. But the principle is important. The history and associations of an object matter spiritually. An object that has been used for, associated with, or symbolically connected to spiritual practices opposed to Torah, that history does not simply evaporate. This is a principle that appears throughout halakha, in the laws of forbidden mixtures, in the laws of items used for idol worship, in the entire framework of how our tradition thinks about the spiritual residue that objects carry. Your home is a mikdash me'at, a small sanctuary. And what you bring into a sanctuary, the history, the associations, the spiritual signature of every object, it matters. Now I want to give you the other side of this. Because our tradition is never only about what not to do, it is always about what to do, about tikkun, about building something better in place of what was removed. There are plants that our tradition views as genuinely spiritually beneficial for the home. The myrtle, hadas, is one of the 4 species of Sukkot. The Zohar speaks of the myrtle as a plant associated with Shabbat, with Kedusha, with spiritual elevation. In many Sephardic communities, there is a beautiful practice of smelling fragrant myrtle on Motzei Shabbat as part of Havdalah, to comfort the neshama as the extra Shabbat soul departs. Having a myrtle plant in your home brings with it a spiritual signature of Kedusha, of Shabbat, of the elevated spiritual state our tradition most values. Fragrant plants generally, plants that produce beautiful scents, are viewed positively in our tradition. Fragrance is deeply connected to the neshama in Kabbalistic thought. The nose, our sages say, did not sin at the time of the Etz Hadat, the tree of knowledge. Fragrance is the sense most directly connected to pure spiritual pleasure. Plants that flower beautifully, that grow toward light, that spread their branches in an attitude of reaching upward. These are plants whose spiritual signature aligns with what we want our homes to embody. Growth, reaching toward the divine, openness, beauty. And I want to stop here for just a moment, because I realize some of you watching this are going to go into your home today and look at your plants differently. Maybe for the first time. Maybe you're realizing that the beautiful cactus arrangement you put together last year has been sitting in the center of your living room, broadcasting exactly the wrong energy. That moment of recognition, that's not nothing. That's your neshama paying attention. Honor it. And if this kind of teaching, Torah-grounded, Kabbalah-sourced, practically applicable to your actual daily life, if this is what you've been looking for, then please be part of this community. Subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs it, because there are people watching this right now in homes that feel spiritually heavy and they cannot figure out why. And sometimes the answer is genuinely as simple as what's sitting on their windowsill. Be the person who shares this with them. Leave a comment below and tell me, what plants do you have in your home right now? I want to know. I read every single comment. So practically, here is what I want you to do. Walk through your home today with one specific question in mind. Is this plant alive and thriving? Any plant that is dying, brown leaves, wilting stems, rotting roots, a plant that you've been meaning to water for 2 weeks, remove it today. Not tomorrow, today. A dying plant is a spiritual void in process. Do not let it sit. Any plant that is dead, completely gone, just a dried husk in a pot, remove it immediately. This is not a living thing anymore. It is the remains of a departed life force. It does not belong in your living space. If you have cacti, particularly multiple cacti, particularly cacti placed in relationship-centered spaces like the bedroom or living room, I want you to seriously consider relocating them. If you love them and can't bear to part with them, a home office or a study where the energy of protective boundaries might actually be useful is a better placement than the heart of your home's social and intimate spaces. Replace what you remove with something living and thriving. A small, fragrant plant, something that flowers, something that grows visibly and enthusiastically, something whose essential nature is reaching toward light, because that energetic signature is exactly what your home needs. And when you bring a new plant into your home, bring it in with intention. Say, I am bringing living energy into this sacred space. I am choosing growth. I am choosing life. I am choosing to fill my home with things that reflect Hashem's creative, generative, life-giving energy. That intention costs nothing, and it transforms a trip to the plant nursery into an act of spiritual renovation. One more thing before I close, and this is perhaps the most important thing I've said today. The old rabbi who visited my home 12 years ago, the one who pointed at my dying plant, he said something else that evening that I've never forgotten. He said, "David, the state of a person's home reflects the state of their inner world. Not always, not as a judgment, but as information. A home full of dying things, of broken things, of things that repel and wound. It tells you something. It invites you to ask, where in myself am I holding on to something that needs to be released? Where in myself am I sending away what should be welcomed? Where in my inner life is something dying that I haven't had the courage to let go of? Your home is a mirror, not the kind on your wall, the kind that reflects your soul. And when you change your home with intention, when you remove what is dying, what is repelling, what is spiritually draining, you are not just changing your physical environment. You are making a declaration about who you choose to be, about what kind of life you choose to cultivate, about the spiritual reality you are actively choosing to inhabit. That is powerful. That is real. That is exactly the kind of work that Hashem notices. Go take care of your plants today. Let go of what is dying. Bring in what is living. And watch, slowly perhaps, but genuinely, how the atmosphere of your home begins to breathe differently. May your home be filled with the energy of Chaim, of real, vibrant, divinely sourced life. May every living thing within your walls reflect growth, beauty, and the reaching of all creation toward its source. And may this small act of spiritual housekeeping open doors of bracha that have been waiting patiently for you to clear the way. I'm Rabbi David. Thank you for being here. Go take care of your home today, and I will see you in the next video.